Hare Krishna, this morning we will discuss Canto 1, Chapter 5, Narada's instruction on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva, text 1 to 12. And we will start with reciting text 1, which is on the screen now. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So I first recite the Sanskrit, text 1, chapter 5, canto 1. Sutta uvacha atatam sukam asina upasinam prihatshava devarshi praha viprashim vinnapani smayam iva. Sutta Goswami said, thus the sage among the gods, Narada, comfortably seated and apparently smiling, addressed the rishi among the Brahmins. Purport. Narada was smiling because he well knew the great sage Vyasadeva and the cause of his disappointment. And he will explain gradually Vyasadev's disappointment. Vyasadev's disappointment was due to insufficiency in presenting the signs of devotional service. Narada knew the defect, and it was confirmed by the position of Vyas. So, Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnanjnanasmakya Sakshunmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Chitchetayamanovistam stapitam yena bhutaleshvam apkadamyam dadati svapadantikam. Vandeham shiyo shiyuda padakamalam shiyum vaishnavam sha. Shirupam jagajatam saganaragnatam vitam tam sativam sadvaitam savdutam parjana saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sankalita Shivashakam Vitamsha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jatpate Gopesha Gopka Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavana Shri Vrishabhana Sutadevi Pranamama Haripriye. Pankha Kalptabhisha Kripa Sinvaivasha. Patinam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namah. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharani. Nirvishesha Srinyavadi Paskachai Desatarani. Srila Prabhupada Ki. So we heard last week in the previous chapter, chapter 4, how Srila Vyasadeva felt dissatisfied. He had compiled so many, practically all the Vedic literature, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, and Upanishads, the 4 Vedas, and so on. But still, he did not feel satisfied in heart. And he was contemplating on what's the cause of my dissatisfaction. And he came to the point of thinking maybe it is because I did not sufficiently describe the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And at that moment, like mystically, a spiritual master, Narada Muni, appeared. And we see here in this verse, he appears and he's smiling. And he's going to address Vyasadeva. So there seems to be no conversation. He addresses immediately the dissatisfaction of Srila Vyasadeva. Without introduction, immediately he will address it in the next verse. It's quite mystically. Text 2. Narada Uvacha Parasarya Mahabhaga Bhavata Kachin Atmana Paritushyati Sarira Atma Manasa Evava. Addressing Vyasadeva, the son of Parasar, Narada inquired, are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as the objects of self-realization? So what does that mean? The body or the mind as object of self-realization? It brings us to the point, who are you? What do you consider to be the Atma or the self? We think usually as the body or the mind as the self in this world. And whatever I think to be the self, that will be the center of my existence. If I identify with the family, the country, then that will be the center of my pleasure seeking in this world. Then I will have to please the body and my mind. So Narada Muni points out that even if we become full devotees of the mind and the body, they never can give us happiness. So why? Even what will come out very soon, and even if we don't identify with the mind, don't identify with the body, even if we know that we are eternal souls, spiritual entities, that still won't bring us happiness. Because it is only a partial knowledge of who we actually are. So, in the West, everyone is casual nowadays. They introduce them by their first name, but that is an incomplete understanding of who we are. Because to understand who the person is, where he's coming from, one needs to be introduced by surname, his family name too, because that tells who this person is in relation to family. Or when some people from India go to the West, they adopt the name of their village or their state as their family surname. Because everyone has to be known in relationship to someone or something else. So to know that we are spirit souls in itself, it's insufficient because the relationship with the whole, with Krishna, is missing. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Shivera Svarupa, the living entity's own form, one's own Svarup, is Krishna Nityadas. This is the complete identity. Not only eternal, but eternally Krishnadas. So therefore, are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization? Of course, Srila Vyasadeva knew that he was not satisfied, and nor is anyone else. Now Narada Muni is going to push a little further. So he's the spiritual master. This is the job of the teacher, to push. Text 3. Shikhnasitam susampanam apite mahat atputam kitavan bharatam yastvam sarvata paribrimita. Your inquiries were full, and your studies were also well fulfilled. And there is no doubt that you have prepared the great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained. So this, I'm going to read now a verse from the 3rd canto, chapter 5, text 12. This is Vidura speaking to Maitreya Muni. So Vidura says to Maitreya, your friend, the great sage Krishna Dvaipayana Vyas, has already described the transcendental qualities of the Lord in his great work, the Mahabharata. But the whole idea is to draw the attention of the mass of people to Krishna Katha, through their strong affinity for hearing mundane topics. Yes, this was the purpose as spoken by Vidura himself. So Narada Muni says that although you put Bhagavad Gita in the Mahabharata, you are still not feeling satisfied. Text 4. Jichnasitam aditam cha brahmayattat sanatanam tatapi sochasatmanam akritarta iva prabhu. You have fully delineated the subject of impersonal Brahman as well as the knowledge derived therefrom. Why should you be despondent in spite of all of this, thinking that you are undone, my dear Prabhu? So this is in the Vedanta Sutra, also known as the Brahma Sutra. Why should you be despondent in spite of all of this? So this is a question we can ask the powerful personalities in the world, the billionaires, those who have the perfect family, the perfect business, the perfect house, the perfect bodies, famous, but still something missing. Srila Vyasadeva replies, this is the concise expression of the despondency's root cause. Now text 5. Vyasa vacha astyeva me sarvamidam tayoktam tatapi natma paritushyati me tanmulan mavyaktam agada bodham prichamai tvatma bhavatma bhutam. Shri Vyasadeva said, all you have said about me is perfectly correct. Despite all this, I'm not pacified. I therefore question you about the root cause of my dissatisfaction. For you are a man of unlimited knowledge, due to your being the offspring of one who is self-born, which is Brahma, has no father and mother. So we will read the small purport. In the material world, everyone is engrossed with the idea of identifying the body or the mind with the self. As such, all knowledge disseminated in the material world is related either with the body or the mind, and that is the root cause of all despondency. This is not always detected, even though one may be the greatest erudite scholar in materialistic knowledge. It is good, therefore, to approach a personality like Narada to solve the root cause of all despondencies. Why Narada should be approached is explained below. So unless we realize our position as a spirit soul, there will be despondency. Realizing it means acting in that way, acting as a spirit soul. Otherwise, the body and the mind is the center of my existence. So this is Narada's greatness spoken by the great Vyasadeva. So text 6. Savai bhavam vidasamasta goyam upashito yat purusa purana paravareso manaseva vishvam shityatavatyate gunera sangha. My Lord, everything that is mysterious is known to you, because you worship the creator and destroyer of the material world and the maintainer of the spiritual world, the original personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to the three modes of material nature. Text 7. Tvampayatanarka ivat hilokim antasharvayo ivat masakshi pravari brahmani dharmatma vratai snatasya nenyunam alam vishaksva. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the three worlds, and like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervading super soul. Please, therefore, find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows. So, how did Narada Muni become so powerful, so free? How did he become so free that he could travel anywhere in the three worlds, even in Vaikuntha, in the spiritual world? This is going to be described later in this chapter. This pastime of how Narada Muni became liberated exemplifies Bhagavad Dharma, the ideal life, and we will hear about that. We will hear about that how Narada Muni meets, we will hear about Narada Muni from his birth to his death. We will watch him, hear from him, see how his realizations developed. So these discipline regulations are helpful, but they are not a goal in itself. So I will now read the verses 8 to 13 until the end of the section today, and then I will go back and read some of the purports. So 8. Shinarda Vacha Batano Dita Prayam Yasur Bharvato Malam Yanai Vaso Natusheta Manyita Darshanam Kilam. Narada said, you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. Yata dharmadaya sarta muni varyanu kirtita nattata vasudevasya mai iyanu varnita. Although, great sage, you have very broadly described the four principles, beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva. Then, Nayat Vachas Shirapadam Areyaso Yachat Pavitram Praginitaka Richit Tatvaya Samtirta Ushanti Manasa Yatramsa Niramantyusiksaya. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage of crows. Since all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. 11. Tatvakvishago sanatara viplavo yasmin patistukon abatyapi namananantasya sukitaniyat shivanti hrinantasadava. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, form, fame, form, pastimes, etc. of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. 12. Naiskarmyamapyusabhava vashitam nasobhatejanam alam niram chanam kuta punasasvatabhatramishvare Nasharpitam karmayat apyakaranam. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of the conception of the infallible God. But then is the use of fruitive activities, which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature, if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord. 13, the last one. Atama bhagavan namochadrik shuchi shravasatya ratodrita vrata urukramasya kilabana muktaye samadhinas dinanus maratat visheshitam. O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness, and thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. Now we will go back to text 8. So now Narada Muni is exactly telling here what the problem is. This because Vyasadeva is very sincere, is very surrendered. His heart is open. So he wants those instructions as a disciple. I read text 8 again. You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. So the philosophy, so the singing, the life, that is not meant for satisfying Krishna, Narada Muni is saying, it's worthless. We should take this deeply into our consciousness. We want to go to the root of the problem. Krishna is the center, not me. Rishikesha, Rishikena Sevanam Bhakti Uchate. That is bhakti. When Rishi Isa, when the control of the senses becomes the center. And our business is to please him. That is called bhakti. That philosophy which does not satisfy the Lord is considered worthless, even if it is completely spiritual. That's interesting. 9. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the 4 principles beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. So Srila Vyasadeva might think, but I've written so much. Yes, these 4 principles of religion, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. The Karma Kanda section is full of that. But that's a problem. We will see what a bit further. Text 10. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. So even literature which is so wonderfully composed, if it does not glorify Krishna, then it is rejected by the Paramahamsas. This is loved by the crows. So there is an old Chinese saying by Confucius that a duke somewhere asked Confucius, what do you say about a person who is loved by everyone in the village? Confucius replied, I cannot say anything about that person. The duke asked, when can you say about someone who is hated, but can you say about someone who is hated by everyone in the village? Confucius replied, I cannot say anything about such a person. It is better to be loved by the good people and hated by the bad. So if there is a literature that is loved and popular all over the world, the cows, they love it. But it is better for a literature to be loved by the Paramahamsas and rejected by the crow-like personalities. Text 11. Tasvach visaryo sanatar viplavyo yasmin pratisvagam bhatyapi. Namananantasya yaso kitani yat shivantya jayanti hinanta sadhava. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literature, even imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So this verse is so powerful. It's worth reading it 100 times. When Srila Prabhupada was first publishing Bhagavad Gita by Macmillan, they contacted many famous personalities to write a review. Most reviews received were very favorable, but one Buddhistical Western popular author, Alan Watts, was very strong and critical of Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktivedanta Swami says the Bhagavad Gita cannot be interpreted. That in itself is an interpretation. Very strongly against when the vote is told that Srila Prabhupada, that very strongly again, he was very strongly against. And when the vote is told that to Srila Prabhupada was very happy. It is good if the demons are disturbed, Srila Prabhupada said, because it is meant to bring about revolution in the impious lives in the world's misdirected civilization. It is meant to change everything. So if the people are established in impiety, then they will not say how nice the devotees are. No illicit sex, close the brothels, no intoxication, close the liquor shops, no gambling, close the casinos, no meeting. That how nice it is going to be. We close all the slaughterhouses. No, this is what they are making the money from. Their whole life is based on these things. They are going to fight. They hate it. They will threaten the devotees. But this is what the Bhagavatam is meant to do. Dharma prochita katai vatra. Throw out all this cheating religion. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he was like a general in the army. Of course, Srila Prabhupada was very sweet because he was, but because he was so heavy, pushing everyone out to fight. So that literature, full of transcendental words, it is of a different creation. These are not material worlds. It pierces the heart of the living entity and changes his heart from material to spiritual. So this literature is transcendental. It can touch a soul on the soul level. Even though it may be imperfectly composed, they are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. What do you think when you hear that? Thoroughly honest? What is the opposite of a thoroughly honest person? Is motivated, crooked, dishonest, duplicitous, conceited, vicious, is bluffing, is a cheater, a hypocrite. He is in the center of existence. He identifies with the mind and the body, not with the soul. Therefore, he's bluffing. That his honesty and good qualities are bluff, because it's just a matter of naming a price, and you sell out everything. Everyone in the material world has a price, but as soon as they have the price, someone wants to pay, then everything goes. Very embarrassing. All good qualities out of the window. But for the transcendentalist, there is no price in the material world. Neither on the sense level, nor on the mind level, on the spiritual level. They are sold complete to Krishna. And the topmost emblem that of this are the gopis. Krishna has a headache, and the only thing that can cure him is putting the dust of his devotees on his head. How can I do that? Then I will go to hell. And what did the gopis say? Even if we can relieve one drop of Krishna's pain for a moment, I'm happy to go to hell. But who is willing to pay the price? What is the price? Everything. It takes a full resolution in the heart, a changing of the center to Bhagavad Dharma. A changing of the center from me, either the mind or the body, from me to the service of Krishna. Shivera Svrupahoy Krishna Nityadas. So this is a big change. It's not a cheap change. It's not superficial. Text 12. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature, if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? So, even knowledge that we are eternal souls if it's not related to Krishna, it does not look well. Srila Vyasadeva has written all of this. He wrote about Brahman realization and Vedanta. If Brahman realization is considered not looking well or complete, what to speak of fruitive activities? So we read text 13 again. O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect, your good fame is spotless, you are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness, and thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. So it's these qualities, perfect vision, truthfulness, they are born of the mode of goodness. Because Srila Vyasadeva had this goodness, he can think of the Lord's pastimes of the Lord, he can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance. Srila Vyasadeva will enter into that trance, and he will get the revelation of Srimad Bhagavatam based on these instructions of Narada Muni. This is the base of Srimad Bhagavatam. That will be described in the beginning of chapter 7. After Narada Muni leaves, Vyasadeva, he will meditate on the pastimes of the Lord and describe this for everyone's benefit. Because Krishna will attract everyone. Because this material world is a desert and Krishna is the water of life. We need to water the seed of devotion with the water of Shravan, hearing about Krishna. So now I want to go back to text 4 in the beginning, yeah? 154. Yeah. You have fully delineated the subject of impersonal Brahman as well as the knowledge derived therefrom. Why should you be despondent in spite of all this thinking? You are undone, my dear Prabhu. So Srila Jiva Goswami in Priti Sandarbha is commenting in Anucheda 1, explaining that near Brahman realization as Srila Vyasadeva had achieved and described in his books cannot satisfy the soul. Love, Priti, that's the soul's true need, this love. Thus, this is the comment of Srila Jiva Goswami on this verse. Direct perception of Bhagavan, who appears as Paramatma and in many other forms also, is the highest kind of liberation. In that highest liberation, the most exalted spiritual activities are known by names as Bhakti, devotional service, and Priti, spiritual love. Spiritual love is considered the highest of all spiritual sentiments. Priti completely ends all suffering. Priti needs an object, Krishna. Krishna means Prema Pumarta Mohan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said. That's without Priti, the high states of spiritual life, Prayojan, cannot be obtained. It is independent of everything else. To the extent one is pretty, one is fortunate. Pretty is present as one is making progress towards liberation, and it is also present when one has attained liberation. That is the correct understanding, Srila Jiva Goswami said. So the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is full of transcendental bliss. Transcendental bliss is abode of Priti, love. This is where Priti lives. Therefore, Priti is the most important in experiencing transcendental bliss. Therefore, the spirit soul should always try to attain this Priti. Priti is the greatest need and the highest goal of the spirit soul. I'm going to text 7 and read the translation again. Like the sun, your goodness can travel everywhere in the 3 worlds. And like the air, you can penetrate the internal region of everyone. As such, you are as good as the all-pervasive supersoul. Please therefore find out the deficiency in me, despite my being absorbed in transcendence under disciplinary regulations and vows. So Narada tells Srila Vyasadeva immediately, you have actually not broadcast the spotless glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then 8. So you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is worthless. I read the first 2 lines of the purport. The eternal relation of an individual soul with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is constitutionally one of being the eternal servitor of the eternal Master. The Lord has expanded himself as living beings in order to accept loving service from them, and this alone can satisfy both the Lord and the living beings. In other words, if we try to relate to the Lord in another way, he won't be satisfied. So what verse of Bhagavad Gita explains how the Lord is satisfied by the simplest thing to give him? Patram pushpam phalamtyam yomi bhaktya prayachatu. He says that Asnami says, I will take it. He will take it. He wants it. There are so many wonderful pastimes about this. Raghunanda Thakur, a little boy who offered the deity Mukunda, his father went out and asked Raghunand to offer food to the deity. So Raghunand was a small boy and his father, Mukunda, he said, I have to go away, you offer this food to the Lord. So Raghunand offered the food to the deity, ringing the bell, and he said, please take this. And then he saw that the food was still there. And Raghunand started to cry, my father will be so angry if you don't take this. So the deity took it and ate half. Then his father came back and asked where the rest of the prasad was. Raghunand said, the deity ate it. So Mukunda did not believe his son. So the deity could not refuse the simple-hearted love of the boy. This will satisfy Krishna. Asnami prayatatmana. And yayatma shubhashidati. If Krishna is satisfied, we are satisfied. So Bhagavad Dharma is try to please Krishna. Go text 9 again. All the great sages, you have very broadly described the 4 principles beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva. So the purport that the first 2 sentences. The prompt diagnosis of Sri Narada is at once declared. The root cause of the despondency of Vyasadeva was his deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord in his various editions of the Puranas. So the Puranas means the Gopal Tapini, the Upanishads, the Puranas, the Mahabharata, so many descriptions of Krishna, but the proportion was not sufficient to satisfy the soul. So further the purport. These 4 items are by far inferior to engagement in devotional service to the Lord. Sri Vyasadeva, as the authorized scholar, knew very well this difference, and still, instead of giving more importance to the better type of engagement, namely devotional service, he had more or less improperly used the valuable time, and thus he was despondent. Yeah. This is from Hari Hari Vifale Janmana Kanain. Manasya Janma Paya Radha Krishna Nabaya Chanya Vishakainu. Knowingly, purposefully, I am drinking poison. Poison, why poison? Wasting time of this valuable human life, human form of life, is drinking poison. So then, further, from this it is actually indicated that no one can please substantially without being engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, this fact is clearly mentioned. That now the 2 last sentences, Narada recommended to Vyasadeva that he, Vyasadeva, should now eagerly and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. This would cure him from his gross despondency. So Srila Jiva Goswami has commented on this verse 9. Says, you have broadly described the 4 religious principles, beginning with religious performances. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jiva Goswami says that knowledge devoid of the Lord's glories is useless and incomplete. And also in the Priti Sandarbha, he says, Sri Narada spoke these verses because he knew that the descriptions of the Lord's glories would awaken love for him. So not only is this the goal, but it is also the means. In the Bhagavad Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami mentions 2 reasons why the Srimad Bhagavatam would manifest. First, to show that mere knowledge of Brahman is insufficient to satisfy the soul. And second, to show that the Supreme Personality of Godhead can be directly seen only by loving service. So now we have the purpose of 10 and 11. These are very powerful purposes. But we cannot analyze them deeply. But Srila Prabhupada put so many powerful quotes in this purport that so we can read a part of it. Crows and swans are not birds of the same feather, because of their different attitudes, that the fruitive workers or passionate men are compared to the crows, whereas the all-perfect saintly persons are compared to the swans. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate fruitive workers take pleasure in wine and women, and places for gross sense pleasure. The swans do not take pleasure in the places where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings. They are instead seen in the atmosphere of natural scenic beauty, where there are transparent reservoirs of water, nicely decorated with stems of lotus flowers in variegated colors of natural beauty. That is the difference between the two classes of birds. At the end, yeah. Social, literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, and politicians who are completely absorbed in the material advancement of sense pleasure are all dolls of the material energy. They take pleasure in a place where rejected subject matter are thrown according to Swami Sridhar. This is the pleasure of the prostitute owners. But the literature which describes the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramamsas, who have grasped the essence of human activities. Now the last verse again, verse 11. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories, name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc. of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So read a part of the purport. It is a qualification of the great thinkers to pick up the best even from the worst. It is said that the intelligent man should pick up nectar from a stock of poison, should accept gold even from a filthy place, should accept a good and qualified wife even from an obscure family, and should accept a good lesson even from a man or from a teacher who comes from the untouchables. These are some of the ethical instructions for everyone in every place without exception. But a saint is far above the level of an ordinary man. He is always absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Lord, because by broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Supreme Lord, the polluted atmosphere of the world will change. And as a result of propagating the transcendental literature like Srimad Bhagavatam, people will become sane in their transactions. While preparing this commentation of this particular stanza of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have a crisis before us. Our neighboring friend China has attacked the border of India with a militaristic spirit. We have practically no business in the political field. Yet we see that previously they were both China and India, and they were both lived peacefully for centuries without ill feeling. The reason is that they lived those days in an atmosphere of God consciousness, and every country over the surface of the world was God-fearing, pure-hearted, and simple, and there was no question of political diplomacy. There is no cause of quarrel between the two countries, China and India, over a land which is not very suitable for habitation. So there is no cause of quarrel between the two countries, over a land which is not very suitable for habitation, and certainly there is no cause for fighting on this issue. But due to the age of quarrel Kali, which we have discussed, there is always a chance of quarrel on slight provocation. This is due to the issues in question, but to the polluted atmosphere of this age systematically. There is propaganda by a section of people to stop glorification of the name fame of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, there is a great need for disseminating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. It is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world, to do all the suppermost good, as well as to bring about the desired peace in the world. Because India has failed in her duty by neglecting this responsible work. There is so much quarrel and trouble all over the world. We are confident that if the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam is received only by the leading men of the world, slowly there will be a change of heart, and naturally the people in general will follow. The mass of people in general are tools in the hand of modern politicians and leaders of the people. If there is a change in heart of the leaders, certainly there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world. We know that our honest attempt to present this great literature, conveying transcendental message for reviving the God consciousness of the people in general and re-spiritualizing the world's atmosphere, is fraught with many difficulties. Our presenting this matter in an adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail, and there will be so many literary discrepancies despite our honest attempt to present it in a proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of society will still accept this due to its being an honest attempt to glorify the Almighty God. When there is fire in the house, the inmates of the house go out to help from the neighbors who may be foreigners, and yet without knowing the language, the victims of the fire express themselves, and the neighbors understand the need, even though not expressed in the same language. The spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam through the polluted atmosphere of the world. After all, it is a technical science of spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the techniques of this great literature are understood by the people of the world, there will be success. So this is the essence of Srila Prabhupada's mission expressed here in a few words. So this was the section of today, up chapter 5, verses 1 to 12. Any questions?
Questions, Maharaj, but thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Verses in the sequence, especially emphasizing the important points in the purport. You have very nicely highlighted them. Thank you so much. Make the understanding very clear.
So any question, or what do we learn today?
You had a comment, right? He had a comment that it was very nice, Maharaj, how you presented.
I try my best with all my faults also. Yeah.
So if you allow, Maharaj, I have one question.
Yeah.
So Maharaj, and thank you very much for the nice class, and as you nicely explained the mental state of Vyasadeva, and then how Narad Muni actually pinpointed what is the issue, and then directed him what to do.
Yeah.
So many times in devotees' life, similar things happen, and I have observed personally myself as well as other devotees that initially, when we understand the concept of bhakti, and we are not body, we are spirit soul, then there is a losing of taste in material activities and work, material work or material decision making. And then many times it has been seen that the person is not interested in material things. At the same time, person is not elevated to spiritual activities. Then many times we become laid back or lethargic. And I have seen many devotees, and it's not to pinpoint anyone, but they mentioning that, okay, if devotee is there involved in any material activity, or we don't want to get anything from them. Like example, if there is a construction work, and if we have a devotee who does construction, and I have seen the temple presidents or managers saying, no, we don't want to get devotees to do that work. It's better we get a professional. So the question is then how we can break that cycle where devotees are not interested in material things, but at the same time they are not spiritually advanced, so they are lagging or taking material life very easily, and sometimes devotees are pointed as losers.
Yeah, the cause of that is explained in these verses today. Krishna consciousness means connecting with Krishna every moment. And that connection must be there. And that connection, to make that connection, one must understand one's proper position. That Krishna, Shivera, Svarupa, Hoy. Krishna Nityadasya. So we are eternally, our Svarup is the servant of Krishna. But then we have to engage in service, but to come to that point, to do that sincerely, one must be situated in Sambandha Gyan. Sambandha Gyan means one must know who Krishna is. And then only one can know one's own position. That's the point here made by Srila Vyasadeva. Yes, you may go for Brahman realization, but it will not satisfy you. Even if you attain it, it's boring, because there's no spiritual activity that gives ananda, joy. So we need to hear the Bhagavatam day after day after day. By that we start to understand these points. It's not so easy. I'm a servant of Krishna, okay, but the next moment I identify with the body and the mind, and I'm going to serve my own needs, and you are complete in the illusory energy. So therefore it requires hearing and the right motivation, doing things to please Krishna without asking something in return, just for Krishna's pleasure, and forget your own so-called safety. If you surrender completely to Krishna, Krishna will take care of you. And that's true. But if we withhold something and we are not pure, we have motives, then there will be dissatisfaction in devotion service, always. So that purity we must learn by hearing the Bhagavatam. And it's a process that takes many years. And then you come to the point of getting it, and then you can practice devotional service properly. And when one practices it properly, then one will feel satisfaction. That's what Prabhupada writes in a purport in Bhagavad Gita, the purport of chapter 10, verse 11. Machita machata prana bodha vyantas praspam katsyan samam nityam tushyanti sharamantusha. In that purport there, it is mentioned that in the beginning of our devotional service, that we must derive pleasure from the service itself, satisfaction, he says, satisfaction. The ananda will not be there. But when our heart is pure, in the advanced stage, we see Krishna, and it becomes ananda, pleasurable. So in the beginning, we have learned But to get that satisfaction in the beginning, one must have the right motive. And one can only have the right motive if one understands one's relationship with Krishna, the Sambandha Gyan. And for this we must hear. And in the beginning that's difficult, because we think I'm going to become a devotee and I'll be happy in this world. That's not the purpose of devotional service, to be happy in this world. The purpose is to develop love for Krishna and to get out of it. The purpose is not going back to Godhead. The purpose is developing love for Krishna, and as a result, you will go back to Godhead. So these are points we have to learn. And when we get that right in our motivation, then we will get satisfaction and not strive for anything in this world. So that's Lord Chaitanya says that also, no danam, no janam, no sundarim kavtavashri shakamayi, mama chamamishvare bhavata bhaktya haitukita. I don't desire any beautiful women, no followers, no wealth. I only desire this causeless devotional service without any motive, birth after birth. He says birth after birth. He doesn't desire liberation. He doesn't desire to go back to Godhead. But if one has that motivation, as a result, one will go back to Godhead. Does that help to understand?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That was very nice.
Thank you. Anything else? Otherwise, then we see each other next week for the next section. If Krishna.
Yeah,
I just have a small comment, Maharaj. Thank you so much for your class, Maharaj. Really like that.
Can you come a little closer, because it's difficult.
Sure. Sorry, Maharaj. Thank you for your class, Maharaj. I really like that point of a question for the most successful and the most successful people of the material world. Most success that. Why are you still dissatisfied? Why are you still despondent? That Narad Muni, many people we see in this world, especially in the older age, they have seen all the world, and they have gained everything, but still at the end of their life, they have made all the money and settled all the family, but still at the end of their life, people are not satisfied, and there is some depression, some dissatisfaction lingers in their lives, but they're not honest enough or not bold enough to admit it, that I'm not happy even though I have achieved everything. I'm not completely satisfied.
That is what Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. One who lives only for the pleasure of the mind and senses lives for nothing, in vain, for nothing. So you may have all your success in life, nice family, nice business, and everything goes good. But mostly it's not the case. We get also a lot of distress. But suppose, theoretically, everything goes good. At the end, you must die, and it's all over. You lose everything. It's for nothing. So, and that's a part, when we hear the Bhagavatam stresses also the futility of material life, together with devotional service. And we need to hear both. Because that will make us detached. We are all at the exit. Soon we will leave this body. We are soon out, and everything, all relations, everything in this world will be gone for nothing. But our relationship with Krishna is what remains. If we live in our relationship with Krishna, and we get back our spiritual consciousness, We will experience death like Narada Muni. Like a flash of lighting we will hear in the next section. And he was in his spiritual body. And that should be our priority. Does that help?
Yes.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
All the best. Shai Prabhupada.
Thank you.
Hare Bol.